What's up, guys? Here we are again. It's Tuesday. It is time for video number 2. So today, last week we went over data types, and I gave you pretty much the basis of everything you need to know of data types. There's a few advanced ones, but we're not going to get into that until later on because, you really don't need to know about them right now because it's just going to cause confusion. I don't want to throw stuff at you that's going to confuse you. I want you to be able to watch these videos, take what you need to get from them, and go ahead and go apply them into your daily life and programming. So, with all that being said, today we are going to go over the if statement. Last week I told you we were going to go over it in detail because we went over a little bit, but this week we're going to go over it in detail. We're going to go over if statements and we're going to go over variables. So, sorry, my phone went off. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? There we go. Alright, sorry about that. Anyway, back to Visual Studio, we're going to create a new project for this. And once again, it's going to be a console application right there. And we are going to name this console application if statement and crap. And if statement and variables tutorial. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and create that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wait. Alright, here we are. Once again, namespace is if statement variables tutorial, class is program, static void main is your method. Alright, so variables. We're going to start with variables. I'm going to go over global variables, constant variables, and regular variables. There's 3 types. So, global variable is a variable that can be used across the entire class. It works the same like, let's see. Okay, the variables we were using in the last tutorial were string, str. This is a method-specific variable. It can only be used within these brackets. But however, if we were to move string str to here and put it inside the class, it can now be used in any method in the entire class. It becomes a global variable. Now, if we were to make this public means if we were to use this project, if we were to make a reference to this, the same way we're using system and stuff up here, if we were to make a reference to this in another project and say using if statement variable tutorial, this string variable would then become available in that project. That's what going public means. Okay, that means it can be used in any project and solution outside of the one it's in as long as it's being called. Now there's also protected. Protected means even though you use this project in another solution or another project, you're calling this as a reference. Even though you're doing that, protected means this variable will not be able to be seen, but it can still be seen within the classes and bounds of this project. So if we were to go in here in our Solution Explorer, we have program here. If we were to create a new class, just call it sample. Our protected variable could be used in our sample class, but it could not be used if we were to use this method in a different project. You see what I mean? If you have any questions, just throw it down in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer it for you. So public means you can use it in any project and any solution as long as you make a reference to this namespace. Protected means it can only be used within this namespace. And the last one, private. If I could do it right. There we go. Private means it's only going to be allowed in this class. No other class can use it. Doesn't matter if it's in the namespace or not. Nothing else can use it except what's in this class. So I'll give you a for instance. If you're doing anything with banking, anything with money, anything with credit card data, or anything like that, always, 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 always use private variables. For the pure fact of the matter is, if your code gets hacked, if someone gets a hold of your code and they're able to get into it, if they're able to call your methods and see what's doing what, as long as it's private, they still can't use it. They may be able to see it, but they won't be able to call it to be able to use in their own programs to, hack data or anything like that. Always use private. Okay, that rant is over. Anyway, these are class-specific variables. They go right here in the class, and they can be used in any method in the program. Variables, like I said last week, are basically just your ways to hold your data. You give it a data type, and that variable can then hold that type of data. You give that variable a string data type, it can hold words. You give it int, it can hold whole numbers. Decimal float, it can hold numbers with decimal points. Boolean can hold true or false values. Those are variables. That's about as in-depth as it gets. So if you have any questions on variables, if anything sounds confusing to you on the variable situation, throw it down in the comments below and I will do my best to answer it for you. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to let you know I'm going to use private variables because we're in our class. We're not going to use it in any other classes. So I'm going to use private string if test string. Yeah, my variable names are horrible, so I apologize for that. And we're going to do private, there we go, Boolean. This is true. We're going to set it equal to true. And we're going to do another private Boolean. This is false. And guess what we're going to set it equal to? False. Now, notice I have this is true set to true and this is false set to false. I'm going to show you a shortcut that's going to save you in your programming, and it's actually a best coding practice to do it the way I'm about to show you. When you're setting a Boolean, and it's going to be false by default, if the default value of a Boolean is going to be false, just create the variable like I've got this as false created. In Visual Studio, a Boolean's default value is false, always. It's not true until it's set to true. So if you just create the variable like the one this is false, by default it's going to be false. Alright, there you go. Integer's default value is 0. Any number variable's default value is 0 or 0.0. It's a decimal variable. Int is 0. String is just an empty string, but it's still a string. It's just, no characters in it. Boolean is false. Alright, there we go. So we're going to leave it like this. If you have any questions on it, throw it in the comments below. Alright, inside of our main method, we are going to do a simple if statement. If, we never do the if, it starts with if, of course, because if is a method built into C#. And you do open and close parentheses because what's inside the parentheses is what gets checked. So basically your conditions for the if statement go inside these parentheses. So if, where's that? Oh, wait, yeah. I should get it. We shouldn't have to do that. I know there's build errors. It should not need to be static. I didn't want to go over static today. Right, me. This is really annoying. Shouldn't need to be a static class. And it definitely doesn't need to be a static variable. No, this something's not right here. Let me test something real quick. Void test method. Oh, oh, yeah, okay, okay. Our brain went blank there. I should have known this. Okay, because the static void main method is the one used to run the program, and the method itself is static, the variables inside of it have to be static as well. Or you have to have a class reference to it, but you can't have a reference to yourself because that creates an infinite loop. Okay, so for simplicity's sake, I didn't want to go over methods yet, and we're not going to. I'm just going to make all these static, and I'll explain to you what that is because you're going to need to know anyway. Alright, so static methods or static variables or static methods are the ones you want to use when you don't want their values to change. Or, well, no, they can be changed. Let me rephrase that. Static methods or static variables are the ones you want to use when you want your variables to have scope outside of your class. I mean, if we were using programs somewhere else, we would then be able to instantiate the this is true or this is false or if test string without actually making a class instantiation. We would just be able to call program.this is true. I'll get into class instantiation later, so don't worry about that. That's a few lessons down the road because that's a little bit more. There's still a few things we have to go over before I get there. Anyway, you know what? You know what? That's what static is for, is to be able to use variables and methods without actually making a reference to the class. So let's just see if we can do void main like this. If this is true. Okay. With booleans and if statements, there's two ways you can do it. Neither way is wrong. It depends on who you talk to find out which way is right, because everybody has their different opinion. But if this is true, this will automatically check to see if you don't put an indicator on there where it means equals false or equals true. If this is true, it's automatically going to check to see if the value is true on a boolean. So if this is true, then we want to do system.console write line. We went over this last week. This is how you write lines in your console application. The value is true. Alright, else. The else statement is, an integral part of the if statement. The else is what executes if the statement is not true. So if this condition is correct, then it's going to come down to here. But if this condition is not correct, it's going to come into the else statement. Now you can have an if without an else, and it'll just skip it and go on and keep doing the lines of code below. But if you have an else and the statement is false, then it's going to come down in the else statement and do whatever code you have in there. So system.console. You know what? Let's do this. Can I do that? I've never actually tried this. System. No, I can't do it. Okay. I can't remember what it was with. There's a way you can do that, but that's not a lesson I need to show y'all this week anyway. So just forget that little line of code was there. Okay, back to it. System.console.writeLine. We're gonna write. Okay, let's do it this way. We are inside the if. We are inside the if statement block. If we fail this condition, we want to be inside the else statement block. This way we know where we land. And down here, just like we did last week, we're going to do system.threading.thread.sleep. This is our default wait timer. If you want to actually be able to see your console, I suggest you do this. Put 10,000 in there, it will make it last for 10 seconds. Okay. So, the reason these green squiggly lines are there, it means I've declared these variables, but they're not being used. So, we'll get to those in a minute. So, we're going to run this. Yeah, it's got to be freaking static. That's what I thought. Okay. That's going to break the if statement. Yep. So, void test method. There we go. All right. So to get around this little headache, we're going to make a test method. Now, methods are like I told y'all last week, methods are snippets of code that allow you to execute certain blocks without executing other blocks. It's how you keep your code organized and orderly and know exactly what you're executing when you want to execute it. So we're going to make this test method, and we're going to call it, which really all we have to do that. Are you freaking serious? Why can't I call it? Well, it's because it's not static. See? There it is. Oh, this is bullcrap. Okay, you know what? I'm going to edit this out of the video anyway. Because I don't want to make extra methods. I don't want to do that yet. Actually, you know what? I'm probably not going to edit that out of the video because I want this to be a real experience for you guys. I want you to know the hassles and the headaches of programming, because if you decide to go into this as your life's work, as what you decide to be when you grow up, I guess, then you're going to need to know that it can be time consuming, frustrating, and it's not always going to go according to plan. I mean, I sat down, I've been planning on making this video right here since last Friday. I even wrote it out myself twice yesterday, and neither one of those times it didn't go according to plan. So, I mean, I ran out of time. I had to make it today, and I was hoping it would work for me, but there's always these minor hiccups. There's always going to be those little things that you think aren't going to be an issue, and they're going to pop up and be an issue, and they're going to bug you for 3 days, and then you're going to figure out, oh, it was just a semicolon I was missing. Okay. So, rant over. All that being said, we're just going to make these variables static. Like I said, static is a way to be able to use these things without, in other classes, without actually instantiating the class. We'll go over class instantiation later. But anyway, so now you should be able to do this, and it should work fine for us. So if this is true, there we go. This is true, so we landed in the if statement block. That's how that works. So we close this. All right, so if this is true, false. Okay, let me explain to you about the equal sign. There's two ways you can do it. Equals or equal equal. When you do one equal, like up here, it's where you're assigning something. So we're making this variable true. So we'll use one equals. Whenever we're testing the value of something to see if it matches what we want it to check, whenever we're checking a variable, we use double equals. All right, make sense? Any questions, throw them in the comments. And actually, throw in the comments what you think about my little hassle with the static method, not whole 10-minute spiel, because that was rather annoying. And let me know if you guys got aggravated or if you guys understand or, whatever. Just check it out for me. Anyway, so right now we're going to check and see if this is true equals false. We know it doesn't, so we should line in the else statement, but let's find out. We are in the else statement block. There we go. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. That, in a nutshell, is how if statements work. Let's dive into it a little bit more because that's not enough of an explanation. All right. So, checking strings. our if test string, if it equals an empty space, we should land in the else. Boom, we land in the else because our if test string equals test. It doesn't equal an empty space, so we came here. Oh, sorry. Now, if it equals test, boom, we made it in the if block. Our condition was true. All right, so we don't need this as false. What we are going to make an integer test int, and we're going to make it 11. That's my favorite number. Anyway, so 11. What's the green squiggly line for? It just needs to rebuild. Anyway, all right, so testing the integer. If test int is equal to 1, there we go. There we go. If test int equals 1, it does not. It equals 11. So where do you got down in the else? If test int equals 11, we made it in the if because it does equal 11. All right. One thing with number variables, they're a little bit different than booleans and strings. Whoa, excuse me. All right, so if our test int is greater than 11, there's several ways we can do that. We made it in the else statement because our test int is 11. It is in fact not greater than 11. So if it's less than 11, we're in the else still because our int is 11. Okay, so it's greater than, less than, and equals. Now see, there's also two things called, there's a less than or equal to. So basically, if our test int is either less than or up to 11, that means if it equals anything 11 or under, it's going to land in the if. Boom, we landed in the if. Now, if it's greater than or equal to 11, this means if it's 11 or higher, we land in the if, just like that. All right, that's how numbers work. So that covers your basic of if statements. Decimals and floats, doubles and floats, work the same way with the greater than or equal to or less than or equal to or greater than or less than or equal as the int does. It's just you're checking with decimal points as well, so there's no need for me to write that out for you. You can do that on your own, and if you have any problems or have any questions, just let me know, but it works the same as the int. There's another way we can do if statements. They can accept more than one condition, and it works like this. So if our test int is greater than 11, these two straight lines, which is going to be the number above your enter key, the key above your enter key, the backslash, but it's going to be holding shift and hit backslash. It's a straight line separator. That means or. The double straight line is or. So if we're going to test this condition or we're going to test this condition, if either one of those come out true, we're going to land in the if statement. So if test int is greater than 11, or if our int test string equals test, then we want to land down in here. See, we made it in the if statement block. Now we know that test int equals 11, so this failed. But since if test string does in fact equal test, we got down inside the console, so we got down inside the if block, so we were true. This is or. All right, so there's one other thing. And it's the and key. It's shift 7 on the number bar above the keyboard, and you have to do two of them, just like the or. You have to do two. So basically, if this condition is true and this condition is true, we will land in the if block. But since they're both not true, one of them is true. If test string does equal test, but test int is not greater than 11, so we made it down into the else statement. So that was a fail, so we got into the else. Now, if you have any other questions on if statements, this is the basics if statements. You can also do nested parentheses. I mean, if statements can get really hairy really fast. So basically, if we equal 11, we know that's going to be true, and we know our if test string equals test. and this is true. So type of int and bool. Oh yeah, double equals. I forgot that. So if this is true, and this is true, or this is true, which both of them are true, we're going to land inside the if statement. We're going to put a number 1 on there just to make that false. But since this is true and this is true, we should still land inside the if. There we go, we're inside the if. Because this is an OR operator, so basically we're still checking if this is true and if this is true, but since we have it in parentheses and we have an OR operator in there, it's only if one of these come out true, this whole block comes out true. Like I said, if statements can get really hairy really fast, and you have to know where your parentheses are, because parentheses will trip you up in a heartbeat. If you lose track of your parentheses, it'll make you redo the entire code line. And code lines can get really long. So always make sure you're keeping track of your parentheses. All right. So now if we put this back to test, we know that's true and that's true. If we make this an and, so this has to be true and both of these have to be true. So we're going to land inside the if. We are in the if because all 3 statements are true. But if we make this test 1 again, see, we're landing in the else because since both of these aren't true, this entire conditional test right here is false. So basically, we're still doing 2 conditions. This condition has to be true, and this condition has to be true. Everything in the parentheses is considered a condition. It's just you have 2 conditions to see if that one condition is true. I know it sounds confusing, and if you're confused, vent in the comments. I will work with you and try to help you. But it's really straightforward if you think about it from a logical standpoint. Basically, it doesn't matter how many ands or ors we have inside these parentheses. It's all still one condition. It's all the condition on the right side of that and. And something has to happen inside of it to make it true. Okay? Because if it comes out false, we're going to land in the else. That's about as simple as I can make it. So since test 1 is false, it's going to throw the whole thing false because that's an and. Both of these have to be true to make that condition true. Since one of them's false, it makes the whole thing false. And that's why we land in the else. So if we, once again, if we make a test, it's true. Both of them are true. This condition becomes true. That condition is true. Both conditions are true. We land in the if statement. All right. That's about as far as I want to go in the if statements. Because, well, no, scratch that. There's one more. All right, so let's simplify this down one more time. All right. There is else if. All right, so basically else if does, this is true. All right, so what this will do, let me put this line down here so we can see it. All right, so if the if passes, we get inside the if block. If the if fails, it's going to first check your else if to see if the condition on the else if is true, then it'll go down in there. And you can have as many else ifs on the if statement as you want. Like I could have 700 else ifs down there if I wanted it. It's just for the purpose of tutorial, we don't need all that, so we're not going to put that many. But else if. So if this fails, it's going to check this. If it's true, it'll land down here. But if this fails and this fails, it's going to catch the else. All right, so test int 111. We know that will not pass, so we should go straight down to the else if. And this is true, so we should land in the else if block. We are, see, we are inside the else if statement block. That's what it does. It checks this, then it checks this, and then it checks else. Else always has to go at the end. You can't do if and then else if. It doesn't work that way. Else always have to be at the end. So if we do not this is true, the exclamation point is your not operator. Okay, let me show you that. So exclamation point equals means does not. So if test int does not equal 111, then it's going to come in here, which it will. See, we're in the if block because it equals 11. Now, if it is 11, we should land in the else block because it does equal 11. It does not equal 11. And this is true. Not this is true basically means this is true equal false. So that's just the easier way to do booleans. So it does not equal 11. This is true, so it fails that because it's expecting it to be false. So we land in the else block. All right. That is your wrap up on the if statements. All right. So that is tutorial for today, guys. Our next one will come out Friday. I'm still toying with the idea of what I want to do next. I think since we almost had to use it this time, we're going to do method calling, creating methods and calling them from inside of other methods. Nesting methods, basically. You can do nested if statements as well. If you say right here, let me go back to the Visual Studio real quick. Say right here inside this if statement, if we wanted to do if this is true, then we'll do another write out right here. We are in the nested if. See, we made it to the else because I forgot to change this back to equals 11. So we should have two write-outs. We are in the if, and we made it into the nested if. You can nest ifs as much as you want to. You can just keep it going down a loop. Okay, back to me. That is how if statements work. It really doesn't get much more complex than that. The only thing I can tell you is make sure you keep track of your parentheses and your operators. Ands and ors will trip you up. Parentheses will definitely trip you up. Just make sure you have all those in a line and make sure all your conditions are right, and your if statements should work out fairly easily for you. If statements are the backbone of programming. You're not going to make, I can almost guarantee you're not going to make any program that doesn't just write out something to the screen that doesn't have an if statement in it. They're that vitally important. So make sure you pay attention to this lesson. If you have any questions whatsoever, I don't care if it's the smallest question, throw it down in the comments. I will do my best to answer it for you. Once again, if you liked the video, hit that like button down there for me. It really helped me out. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on notifications so you'll get my videos. They're on Tuesday and Friday. If you want early access to my videos and access to the source code for these files, I'm going to start throwing advanced tutorials. One day this week, probably tomorrow, I will be throwing down an advanced tutorial on a calculator, how to make a calculator. I've already got the calculator written. I'm doing the work on recording the video now to show you how to do it. It's got a lot of stuff in there that the tutorials haven't covered yet, but if you know a little bit about programming, you should be able to fumble your way through it. Anyway, that's probably going to drop tomorrow because I'm going on vacation this week. It is my wife and I's 12th anniversary, and we are hitting the beach. It's going to be awesome. 4 days of nothing but me and her. We need this desperately. I want to thank my sister-in-law for watching the kids for me. Anyway, that's about it. Like I said, I don't care how small the question is. If you have it, throw it down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. If you want early access to the videos, that's what I was saying. If you want early access to my weekly videos, go ahead and subscribe to that Patreon for me. You can find the link to it down in the description below. It'll really help me out. There's 4 tiers you can do. We've got a tier where you can do $1 a month. That's really simple. You'll get early access to the videos. You get access to my Discord server. I have a Discord server set up, so if you have any questions during any time and you're just working on programming, you can get in that Discord server. We can talk about it. We can work it out, and we can get it working for you so you understand what you're doing. 'Cause that's the whole reason I'm doing this. I'm doing this so you can learn how to code and you can understand what you're doing. So anyway, we have a $1 tier, we have a $5 tier that gets you early access to the videos, gets you a few more things. It's all explained. We have a 1, a 5, a 10, and a $20 tier. Basically, you get access to more source code, access to better Discord perks, access to the videos. You get all kind of stuff early. Anyway, if you really want to help me out, hit that Patreon. I would really appreciate it. I'll give you a shout out next week if you subscribe. Or yeah, I won't have a video this Friday, so it'll be next Tuesday. I'll give you a shout out in the video. Thumbs up. I love you for it. Anyway, if you have any questions, throw them in the comments. This is Justin, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.